Hi guys, welcome back to Snakes and Adders Introducing series. Today we're doing episode 39 and we're going to be looking at spiny-tailed monitors, Varanus acanthanurus. This gorgeous little lady is called Echo and she's staying with us on holiday, and we asked the owner when she dropped her off if she would mind awfully if we used her for the purposes of the video, as up until now we've not had a good adult size spiny tail to be able to do a video with, and she very graciously agreed. She's an absolutely stunning example. She's totally tame and as good as gold, and she's quite happy coming out and being socialized. So her owner's obviously put a lot of work into her to keep her as we find her now, which is just spectacular, aren't you? Yeah, hi. Go on then, up you come. So this is a wonderful small Australian species of monitor, which belongs to a subgenus called Odatria, and a lot of the smaller Australian and Indonesian species belong to this group. Ackies are probably one of the most popularly kept monitors, and certainly one of the most widely captive bred monitors, and this is because of their inherent manageability with an adult size of around 60 to 70 centimeters. So really manageable. Where are you trying to be? You're going behind my shoulders. You can't go down. You can't go down. Come on. That's it. You go. We're filming here, you know. So at least half of their length is tail, around 60 centimeters. So a similar length to a bearded dragon, but slightly more athletic in build. Certainly capable of running quicker, far more alert throughout the day. When they're babies, they are wriggle bums. They do not want to sit still. They want to be everywhere at once, and it takes a lot of perseverance, time and dedication to be able to get a spiny tail as gentle as this, where we're completely at ease with them sniffing and looking around, and we're not panicking that they're going to dive off and run away and be all flighty and worrying in that manner. Apart from she is insisting on trying to wedge herself between me and the pane of glass behind me. So we'll get to that, because that actually mimics part of their hides in the wild. Yeah, it's glass barrier. Sorry, darling. Come on. That's it. Good girl. So younger keepers, potentially, these may not suit as babies because, yeah, that's my beard. Because they don't want to sit still, and you could be scared of hurting them, and it may just worry keepers slightly. Now adults, they're easy to work with. They're a joy to handle and real good fun to play with, and they just love scurrying around and checking everything out. But younger animals potentially may put child keepers about a bit, so this might be one more for mum and dad that they introduce the kids to slowly, and certainly as the lizard grows and becomes more tolerant of human interaction, then we could start to introduce the kids a bit more. These are an insectivore and a carnivore. They will eat grasshoppers, crickets, catacids, all that sort of stuff in the wild, as well as smaller lizards and geckos and stuff when they can get hold of them. In captivity, diet usually centres around live foods and occasional mice, and some keepers will also offer them ground turkey, but I mean, when mice are as readily available as they are, the note here is that it is an occasional treat and they should have to work for it. Do not just offer it them on a set of tongs. Make them do some sprinting, jumping, running, make some sort of calorific burn count so that you don't end up with an obese lizard. We want them to be chasing their prey and looking around and adventuring and having to work for their food to try and stop them becoming chunky. Does them zero favours to become morbidly obese, which a lot of them do become. So enclosures need to be large enough to allow... Where are you going now? Hey? You're going up there? Okay. So it needs to be large enough for them to run the gambit of temperatures required. As you would imagine, being Australian, and particularly being Northern Australian predominantly, they can experience some truly impressive temperatures and surface temperatures in excess of 70 or 80 degrees Celsius. So they really do like it cooking, but then they need to be able to move away from that and cool down. The whole tank doesn't want to be uniformly baking hot, so it needs to be large enough and preferably long enough so that we can create that cool down over the length of the tank. So basking surface temperatures can exceed 60 degrees Celsius easily, with air temperatures at the hot end being between 40 and 45 degrees Celsius. Some people even go warmer than this. The animals then need to be able to move away to cool down if required, and cool down to around 27 to 30 degrees at the cool end during the day. Nighttime low temperatures can drop to around 25 degrees without issue, and then for some keepers who are cycling for breeding, they will drop them even lower to promote sperm production in the males. Actually, these can be almost willing to breed year round, and similar to other species that we've covered in the past, such as the brown house snakes, we actually use a brumation to turn them off, which is doing a favour to the female to stop them burning out from over egg production. And coming to that, they are prolific. They produce a large amount of eggs, and multi-clutching has become the way of things in captivity. Obviously, people liking to produce as many babies as humanly possible. This can have an effect on your female. This can wear her out. She has a finite amount of stores, and whilst yes, you can keep feeding her to keep the weight on her, it isn't necessarily natural for her to produce 4 litters a year. Let's just think about that for a second. So just be realistic with your expectations about breeding, and maybe being a bit more responsible with the production numbers and such like. Obviously, brumation promotes sperm production, promotes egg follicle development in the females, and it will basically make the breedings all the more fertile the next season. So you're actually doing yourselves a favour really by brumating them, rather than trying to keep them warm all year round and just keep them breeding ad nauseum, because it's not really natural. Spiny-tailed monitors are communal, and unlike their larger cousins, the other monitors, they have been found to live in populations together in the wild, which is almost unheard of. Now, the larger monitors tend to become very combative with conspecifics, another word for saying cage mates, and we have to be very careful about social interactions and making sure they're paired a certain way. If youngsters are raised together from an early enough age, generally with the spiny tails, they will establish and form a bonded group where there is a hierarchy. There will be an alpha animal, but it isn't going to be of a huge detriment to the submissive animals. So we can bear that in mind. Where are you going? You're off again. You're off. You are gorgeous, you aren't you? Hey, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be? Go on then. You can't have my beard. Go on. Right. Can I finish? There is another interesting fact around spiny-tailed monitors, in as much as if we raise 3 unsexed animals, or even 2 unsexed animals in the same vivarium from an early enough age, invariably they shake out to either be a pair or a trio, i.e. a male and a female, or a male and 2 girls. And this is really interesting. There's no real scientific data to back this up. This is just the experience of many keepers over many years, that if we raise youngsters in groups together, they generally just end up being what we need them to be, which, hey, listen, if it works, don't question it, you know. So bear that in mind. If you're going to potentially have a long-term view to trying to reproduce this species, to maybe grow up unrelated babies from 2 separate sources to introduce later as a breeding project, would probably be the way to go. On occasion, when you introduce adult animals, the antagonistic behaviours can be a bit more pronounced than with the babies, so bear that in mind. A single animal wants to be maintained in a vivarium around 48 by 24 by 24 inches, or in new money, what's that, 120 by 60 by 60. A trio of animals would need something like a 6 by 2 by 2, so a 72 24 24, or 180 by 60 by 60 as sort of the minimum requirements. You potentially could use both more height and more depth than that if you wanted to. Come on, we're showing you off. Keep hiding behind my neck. I know. Will not be long now. Substrate wants to be loose and shifting, so we call this friable substrate, and people will use a mix of whether it's the different clays and soil, sand mixes, or they'll use core. They maybe use a bit of grit, so it will bind and allow them to make tunnels if they so want to. They are avid diggers, they love digging, and this is a naturalistic behaviour. Remember, this is one of the 5 fundamental freedoms of pet keeping, that we allow them to enter into naturalistic behaviours. So, you know, there's many different takes on substrates. You could research to the moon and back just on substrate mixes that people use. Look at where they're from, look at the natural content, and go from there. Hiding opportunities should be plentiful along the length of the vivarium, so they do not need to choose between security and being the temperature that they want to be. Preferably, there should be a damp hide. I will come to this in a greater level of detail later on, but people bandy around the fact that these are desert lizards and bone dry and all the rest of it, and from the research that I've been doing, that's simply not true. It's just not. The data is completely rejects that. So we'll go through that later, but yes, they should have a damp hide. One of the most common ailments with spiny tails is the dismemberment of toes and nails through incorrect shedding and skin sticking to them. So having access to a higher humidity hide to help them get this skin off is definitely preferential. So yeah, we'd maybe use a hide that's got a really quite tight aperture for the animal where they'd only just fit through, and this would be to try and keep the humidity contained within that box. The rest of the tank, yes, can be dry, but we do need a saturated moist box for them to be able to go to help them with their skin. Amputated toes and things we don't want. I mean, looking at Echo, as she's grown, she's lost a couple of her claws off her front feet, you know, and that can be from digging, it can be a naturalistic thing, or it may well be that, you know, through occasional stuck sheds that we've lost toes. This is a common thing, so the damp hide really can help. Hide should be tight fitting, and the lizards prefer to wedge themselves rather than have spacious caves, hence why she's trying to sort of wedge herself down the back of my jumper in between the glass and me, and that's more naturalistic. So think about sheets of wood that are just narrowly spaced, or even pieces of slate or similar. Just make sure they're secure and they can't fall on top of her and crush her, or your lizard of choice, obviously. So bear that in mind. Definitely some forethought going into the design and construction of your vivarium is a prerequisite. Whilst it's thought that 70% of their moisture comes from the prey in captivity, we also offer the opportunity to have a drink. And yes, while there are drought periods where they occur during certain periods of the year, their rainfall levels can be staggering. 2 subspecies are recognised. There was a third, but I believe that that's now been elevated to its own species status. Varanus acanthanurus, which was first described in 1885 by Boulanger, and Varanus acanthanurus brachioris in 1919 by Sternfeld. Much discussion remains about identifying acanthanurus from brachioris. The populations are not separated and can occur within each other's supposed distribution. The type locality is given the northwest coast of Australia. So let me just... You can come up now, because I've printed out some stuff. So even though I normally do this for the kids video, I thought it would be useful for us. So I just hope that she doesn't disappear anyway. So this is a distribution map I found online. Dead useful. I mean, when it comes to this sort of stuff where we're trying to find things, the amount of gear you can find online is great. Do not just stop at chat rooms or groups on Facebook where Billy Bob 3000 is telling you how to keep something. Actually put the time into researching it yourself. It takes me about maybe 10-15 minutes of just gathering some bits for us to work with for these videos, and they work great. Where are you going? Look, I've got my hands full now. Don't start them capers. You listening? The top brown section represents Varanus acanthanurus. The orange section represents Varanus, acanthanurus, brachiourus. But animals from the brachiourus distribution have been quoted as appearing in Broome and other areas around, which are definitive areas of acanthanurus. The distribution of the nominate form is Northern Territory in the northeast and western Australia. Distribution for brachiourus spans much further south into central Australia. They occur in the northern half of Western Australia and the remainder of the Northern Territory, Western Queensland and northern South Australia. So you can just hopefully just roughly see the state delineations on that map. So, yes, hi. Next, this is the bit that we were talking about with regards to rainfall, but we're going to get to that. We'll work through it. So whenever I do these videos, I will visit a website called www.timeanddate.com. I talk about this all the time, and this is where I go for our climate data. Climate data is all important for us trying to work out the way that we should maintain an animal. So in this one, what we've got is 3 separate regions. The blue line represents Kimberley region of Western Australia. The red line represents Darwin of Northern Territory, and the green line represents Catherine of the Northern Territory. So we can see a definitive cool down season naturally occurs between April and July, with the peak hot season occurring in September. Temperatures, ambient temperatures of 38, 34 and 37 across October. So they are pretty extreme. When we start thinking that that is only an ambient, whereas a surface temperature on the darker red stones or red mud that these animals might live around, we could be talking surface temperatures well in excess of 70 or 80 degrees Celsius. So yeah, pretty extreme environment. And yeah, we've got, I mean, realistically, the bandwidth between hottest and coolest throughout the year, we're looking at around 10 degrees Celsius deviation throughout the annum on daytime high. Are you okay? Don't go wriggling away. So then we move on to, once we've compared them, we also need to look at nighttime low. So these are generally the coolest temperatures that they're going to experience throughout a 24-hour period. And then again, so the blue line is Kimberley. Hi. Where are you going? You can't escape. You can't. I've got you. Just relax. Just relax. That's it. Good girl. Hey. The blue line is Kimberley, the red line is Darwin, the green line is Catherine. Kimberley's Western Australia, that definitely goes down to the coolest temperature with a recorded low in July of 12 degrees at night, 12 degrees Celsius. Darwin, which is on the northern coast of the Northern Territory, remains far warmer with temperatures only going down to 19 degrees in July, so still stays pretty warm. During the hot months, we're upwards of 24 and 25 degrees, which is the kind of temperatures we see at the equator at night. So the deviation is far deeper at night than it is during the day. So daytime temperatures are reasonably stable within a bandwidth of 10 degrees Celsius, but the nighttime lows, they really seem to drop off, and you can see that it's a much more pronounced trough, as it were. The one that I wanted to get to, which is about just dispelling the myth about true desert lizards. So what we've got here is the rainfall, and we've introduced a fourth locality as well. So the blue line is Kimberley, the red line is Darwin, the green line is Catherine, and then what I've done is put the purple line in, which represents Manchester, UK. Now, Manchester is a dreary place. It is grim up north, and the poor buggers over there, they're from Manchester. It's full of Mancunians. Oh, God. You know, they're so close to have been born in God's country, Yorkshire, but they just missed out because they're the wrong side of the Pennines. And it rains a lot in Manchester. It is pretty grim and pretty grey, and it rains a hell of a lot. So bear that in mind as I go through this data. Manchester's purple line is here and stays pretty much here throughout the year. It rains on and off all year round, and it's pretty linear. What we can see is huge, massive seasonal changes, where Darwin, in actual fact, during January receives 318 millimetres of rain in a month. And this is within the natural range of Varanus acanthanurus. Also, Catherine hits what? 166, and Kimberley 140 mil. Manchester in January, one of the rainiest, most horrible, nasty months of the year, only gets 32.4 mil on average per month. So we're talking about stuff that's seriously wetter than the UK, on a different scale of wet. Now, yes, for a period of what? So we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months, we're at almost drought level conditions where we oscillate seemingly between 11 and 0 mil per month. But then we make up for it big time through October. Where are you going now? October. Hi, are you looking at my maps? Yeah. October, November, December, January, February, March, where, yeah, there's a serious amount of rainfall. So what I did was I then decided to rank these regions. You're right, Echo, yeah? Driest millimetres per year to the wettest millimetres per year. And coming in as the driest of our 4 regions is Manchester, by quite a chalk, 365 millimetres per year. Kimberley, Western Australia, 537 millimetres per year. Where are you going? Come here. You're making my life hard, Echo. Yes. I love you too, yes. Kimberley, 537 mil. Catherine, 573 mil. And Darwin, Northern Territory, 1,146 millimetres of rain per annum. Darwin receives 3.14 times more rainfall per annum than Manchester. So yes, desert lizards. There is going to be a water table with that amount of rainfall. Yes, it's going to sink down, and yes, the lizards are going to create burrows, and there is going to be water down in the ground. So we are going to have humid regions. So even a desert lizard will be able to access a moist, humid hide to be able to help them shed their skin. And that is why we have to recreate it in their captive life, because to keep them as they're above surface temperatures without providing the provision of a subterranean or a hide pretending to be the damp subterranean tunnel that they would have dug, then this is where the problem lies. So bear that in mind when we're sorting our tanks out. Spiny-tailed monitors are egg layers. The eggs are tiny when they give birth to them. They have an inordinate length incubation, 180 days, 160 days, and the eggs grow a lot during that incubation period. It is definitely not one for people who suffer with patience, because you have got to just cross your fingers and pray for that length of time that the eggs are going to make it and be okay. If you put the time in, you will end up with a lizard as fabulous, gorgeous, personable, absolutely just, oh God, such a wonderful animal as Echo. The owner has done a fantastic job. She is a credit to her. Definitely consider one of these lizards. There are far worse lizards out there to keep as pets. These guys are full of beans. They are diurnal. They're out and about. They're just ace. Wonderful animals to have in a viv. So yeah, do your research. Latin name is Varanus acanthanurus. We'll see you again soon. From me and the wonderful Echo. See you later, guys.